Hi, guys.
Hi. Thanks so much for tuning in and waiting for us the last 2 weeks. I was busy hanging out with Oprah last weekend.
How fun. Super casual.
So cash.
We also wanted to wait until after Valentine's Day to record our first full-length unpacking.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about how much Valentine's Day sucks, but Cece's encouraging me to be unbiased and to not die on this hill.
Yes, we are trying to take a softer perspective on all the things we'll be unpacking.
Well, luckily, I've learned to not place a ton of emphasis on Valentine's Day and just embrace it as another day because that's exactly what it is. But I hear a lot from other people how it becomes another way for us to put ourselves down for, quote, not being loved.
Yeah, with this holiday, looking back now, I feel like school set me up to have this really high expectation for Valentine's Day, especially, like being a young middle school boy crazy girl. I would basically obsess about the idea of having a Valentine.
Oh,
Yeah. Ooh. Interestingly enough, with the relationship that I'm in now, my partner and I have actually agreed to not spend money on these Hallmark holidays this year. And I actually completely agree with it, which is weird for me.
yeah.
Every year I would go broke, basically, trying to outdo myself from the year before. And I feel like my relationship behind giving gifts was definitely me trying to use things as a way to prove my love for someone. And I've been learning that that isn't necessary. And I just choose to look at it as another day to be grateful for my partner.
Awkward. My love language is literally receiving gifts and quality time. Of course, I have two. I just have to be that more complicated for people.
So, on that note, today we figured it would be a good time to talk about loving ourselves,
And not basing our self worth on holidays
relationships,
or lack thereof.
or any other source of external validation.
But first, I just wanted to touch a little more on the why of this podcast. So, as a therapist, I cannot ethically share my own experiences with clients.
Thank God.
Dragged. So this is a way for me to be able to do that with people without it crossing boundaries or being unprofessional, and to a certain extent, because there are some things that we will keep off limits from talking about to protect certain people we love in our lives. But essentially, I have been told over and over again, especially over the last 4 years, that I need to be sharing my experiences and knowledge, which, by the way, knowledge is not power.
Nope.
More on a public platform to give, teach, and show others what I've discovered I found is my greatest joy. So here we are.
Yes.
Growing up in an environment where I was criticized, questioned constantly, not just at home, but growing up as a dancer as well, I wrongfully learned that I was doing things wrong. And in order to be accepted or loved properly, I must do things right. And right looks different for different people. So I entered in a game of self-torture, trying to look, act, appear, and achieve, right, in the best way possible in order for you to finally love and accept me. But I was and still am constantly asked why I wear certain things, why I'm not wearing makeup, why my hair isn't done, why I didn't do this thing this way instead of that way.
Oh, I hate that.
And we form these negative beliefs about ourselves from what we observe, what we're taught, what we're asked, told, etc. And over time, by being questioned so often, I began to believe that I was not good enough or what I was doing wasn't good enough.
Ooh, can we talk about core beliefs? I feel like this is so important, and I've learned so much about myself from looking at that.
Yeah. Well, so what we observe and are told over and over again as young children, it truly does embed in our subconscious mind. And so what happens is we formulate a set of false and negative core beliefs, a belief system, if you will, that we thus act out and reinforce through our own maladaptive behaviors, aka behaviors that don't work. And I didn't want to disappoint the people I loved or looked up to, so instead I disappointed my own self.
Right. I relate to this. And unfortunately, social media nowadays doesn't really help with these things. As much as I try to use it as a tool, I know that so much of what I see when I'm falling down a scroll hole
Ooh, I love that word.
on Instagram, it just worsens these issues I have with my own self-worth and my image. So recently, I've been trying to be really mindful of how I use my time on social media. I've started unfollowing a lot of accounts of celebrities and quote influencers with these perfect profiles because that's just one thing that I know that I can do to help myself. And I cannot let what I'm consuming consume me, or my self-worth will take a hit.
Oh, for sure. We can and will have an entire episode dedicated
Yep.
to social media for sure. But in the meantime, I'm here to tell you that social media is a great way to network, a great way to keep in touch with people, but it is not the way to compare your life to someone else's, because you will always end up comparing yourself to, once again, a false sense of reality and reinforce a false set of beliefs about yourself in relation to what someone else appears or doesn't appear to be doing. And we're just not here for that.
Nope.
And listen, I believed that if I did enough or was enough of what I thought you wanted, you would love and accept me. And thus, that would therefore mean that I am lovable and good enough. But it is not that I am not lovable until you love me. That's not the truth. The truth actually is that we are inherently worthy, lovable, good enough, as and on our own, with or without anyone else's approval. My ego doesn't want me to believe that, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, my ego tells me, that no matter how loved that I know I am, I'm still unworthy of it.
Let's unpack that.
So I have to work really hard to counteract my ego on a daily basis.
How do you do that?
Well, I have an issue with reality.
Welcome.
So I have to remind myself about the facts of situations. Like for me, I'm in a relationship. I know that I'm loved, but my ego will convince me that I'm not. So I have to engage in a lot of self-affirming talk. The book, The Four Agreements, which I just recently finished,
Love it.
game changer, has helped me a lot recently. So I've been working on things like not taking things so personally, especially in my relationship.
Yeah. I mean, what other people do truly has nothing to do with us.
It's so hard.
I know, but we act as though it does.
Yeah, and what other people think of us.
Which, by the way, we'll never know because we're not mind readers.
Are you sure?
Yep.
I thought I was. And how other people treat us is a reflection of them, not us.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There are things that I constantly have to remind myself of to keep my perspective of reality in check. I continuously work on not seeking out validation from external sources.
Right. And there's always more work to be done. Ugh. As someone who does a lot and achieved a lot by a young age, I've really come to understand that I am not actually a human doing. In fact, I'm a human being. And the things that I do and or achieve, once again, don't make up my worthiness. I have learned that I am inherently worthy on my own and as my own person, regardless of how many letters are behind my name, what I look like, what I have. Our purpose here is so much greater than taking care of our own egos. I've also come to understand that our other purpose here is to experience all that being a human has to offer. That includes feeling uncomfortable and being uncomfortable to help others, to love ourselves, to help ourselves, and to love others helps take me out of that doing. And instead it places me in a space of being.
I literally do everything I can possibly do to avoid being uncomfortable. To be honest, I hate being uncomfortable. So it takes a lot for me to sit with it and process it. Like my natural state, my first instinct is to be like absolutely avoidant of being uncomfortable. I've always been that way. I would avoid situations, people in the past to avoid being uncomfortable. But I've done a lot of work on that because I've learned that when I face things head on, it's so much easier to deal with in the long run.
But that's so true, right? We look to everything external or outside of us to fill us, distract us, focus on. But truly, I've also come to understand that we are here in order to experience the range of human emotion, which includes all of them: joy, pain, discomfort, sadness, anger, happiness. We rob ourselves of our experience as whole human beings and therefore neglect our inherent humanness by trying to seek and focus outside of ourselves and thus not feel.
Yeah, so instead of focusing on myself and what fills me, because, it's all about me.
Always.
I've learned that by connecting with other humans, which, by the way, doesn't always come easily, it allows me to get outside of my own ego and to help someone else.
Yeah. And I gotta tell you, to love and be loved and to help one another, also to allow ourselves to be helped, right? That's our goal here.
For sure.
But instead, we too often hurt one another out of our own self-centered fears and motives, once again seeking outside of ourselves in order to experience some semblance of comfort, even if it means betraying ourselves to seek the approval of someone else. Because we believe that that external approval is going to define our worthiness and our ability to be lovable.
I've definitely betrayed myself a lot in the past, chasing the idea of what things were supposed to look like, be like, especially with relationships. A lot of it was surely based out of fear, and it's taken a shit ton of work and effort for me to change that narrative for myself.
Heard that.
I've had to learn that a relationship does not define me. My career definitely does not define me.
What?
Which sometimes that's hard. It's still hard because it's been one of the, only constants in my life for a really long time. And, I need to be doing things to build up my own self-esteem so that I don't fall back into a trap of making these things my identity.
Absolutely. We are worthy and lovable all on our own. Like, despite whether or not someone shows us that or tells us that, our self-worth is not and never will be defined by the people who can or cannot love us, by the things we do or do not achieve, by the accolades we do or do not receive. I mean, if that were the case, we'd all be feeling pretty fucking great about ourselves. But rather, we're miserable little adult children throwing temper tantrums, right? Running around in circles, wondering why we can't ever get off the roller coaster that is the cycle of shame.
Woo woo! All aboard!
We gotta get
right?
off. Yeah, we gotta get off the crazy train.
Gotta get off.
Gotta get off. I don't know. I had to learn that my inherent being is on its own, standing alone as a lovable, worthy, deserving person who needs to embrace all of her humanness to ever feel whole. Because my humanness, right, like my flaws, my attributes, my character defects, my strengths, how my ego manifests itself, all make up who I am. And so to embrace all parts of myself rather to shove them down or act out on them, that's what really sets me free.
Yes, having that self-awareness is so important. And it's the first step on working on these issues. And this is a journey, not a I'm going to do the work and end up at a destination type thing. I've learned I can do a ton of work on myself and I can easily slip back into negative self-talk and self-sabotage.
Everyone's on their own journey, right? One of the things I constantly have to reinforce to myself the most often, and to other people too that I work with, is the simple fact that we're never cured of our own bullshit. Our ego never dies. So like you're saying, no matter how much work I do on myself or how much I may truly enjoy or love myself, I can easily fall back into questioning myself or even betraying myself.
Right.
It's just part of being a human being, right?
Yeah. And it's really great to have friends to talk about this with. It's been life-changing because in the past I would just keep it all inside and try to deal with situations on my own, which is a really bad idea.
Yeah.
I don't always make the best decisions. And in talking this out, with friends, I've found that I'm not alone. And like you said, this is just a part of life.
Yeah. We can't do this alone. We're not meant to. We try to. It just doesn't ever work out. No. I see this very real human problem manifest itself multiple times a day, every day in my office.
For sure.
Within myself too, and then within the people I'm around. We all struggle with it, and we do ourselves such a disservice by just having the self-awareness, but then not doing anything about it.
Oh, yeah. I've been guilty of that. There's certain things that I'm like, oh, well, this is just a part of my personality, so there's nothing I can do to change it.
Yeah.
I could have all that self-awareness in the world and still be an asshole.
Yeah, fucking right.
Okay, so I was thinking for this episode, since we're talking about self-worth, that we could provide a few helpful tips for our listeners.
Cool. What you got?
Well, you're the therapist, so I thought I'd leave that to you.
I'm surprised you haven't caught up by now that I actually have no idea what I'm doing. I'm a fraud.
We'll get
Just
through
kidding.
this.
So actually, a few things that I do, and that I also suggest to people I work with. One is something called future self-journaling. So what I'll do is I'll write out in present tense and positively frame statements in my journal how I want to be, how I want to feel, how I want to see myself and the world around me. So when I say future self, I mean that future me that I'm currently working on becoming. Listen, people often roll their eyes when I bring up journaling. I'm used to that. But the scientific reason behind why it's so helpful is because writing is another way to shift the pathways in our brain. And then it helps me shift those negative core beliefs, like we were talking about earlier, that I've been reinforcing my whole life. And so what it does is it helps me focus more on my inherent worthiness and that, authentic self that I'm trying to really manifest and become.
Well, it may. I'm the person that rolls my eyes at journaling.
Yeah, you fucking are.
But I see how helpful it is. And I know that when I do it, like, I can see on paper, like, these beliefs that I'm trying to grow into. And not to say that it takes me a decent amount of discomfort to sit down and actually do it, though.
Yeah, until the pain gets great enough. Or, like, even past that point. I'm, like, known for that. We're just going to just keep banging right against the wall, like, over and over and over again.
Hoping something changes.
And then it doesn't. Oh, and it's like, maybe
I should do this.
Yeah, maybe the change is within me. Oh. But so another thing that I do is when I'm, like, really sick of my own bullshit, which luckily, like, happens often, I'll...
I thought you were going to say it doesn't happen often.
Oh, no, it does.
Same.
That's fine. I'll literally sit my ass down and be like, you sit here. And when I'm feeling incredibly uncomfortable too. And what I do is, so I sit there, I have one hand on my heart and one hand on my stomach. And then I breathe really, really deeply in and out until that physical discomfort has passed. And what that is like, I'm processing my emotions. And then I talk myself basically down from the ledge I'm about to jump off of. So I validate my own feelings just like that. Like, hey, like my feelings of whatever, anger, sadness, rejection, like feeling that way, like this is valid. And they are your feelings and they stand alone. And then I talk to myself in a really loving and gentle way, which is not a way that I'm used to being spoken to. So it's really helpful for me to experience that love and comfort from myself in a way to counteract that discomfort and move through it. And this is also actually the technique I use to learn how to feel okay being alone.
That's so great. I have definitely incorporated this like into my self-care because I have anxiety and I know that like if I don't breathe through things, like I'll freak out.
I need to say something about anxiety and breath work just for one moment. Okay. Well, since we're here.
Okay.
So again, I get a huge eye roll all the time when I tell people, so when you're panicking, you have to counteract that panic with breath. And everyone's like, breathing doesn't work. Listen, if breathing didn't work, you'd be fucking dead. So it does, actually.
No, it literally works.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like science or...
It's science. Here, the thing is, it's fucking anatomy. So breath is the only thing that we have in our own resources and our own agency within our body that we can use to ground ourselves in the present moment. And what happens is like we need to shift the way that our body physically reacts to triggers, to whatever it might be. And the only way we can do that is through our breath. And breath is what we need to use in order to calm ourselves down. I always hear people be like, well, I can't breathe. Right. You have to force yourself to breathe. And so all of the things that I often hear from people of like, that's too abstract, that doesn't work, that's too simple, it must be more complicated in order for me to make this change. No, like we're all saying the same things about breath work, about journaling, about self-talk, about reframing your thoughts. Like we all say that stuff over and over again because it actually
works.
Is what works.
Yeah.
You would know that if like you did it. But okay.
Oh, this is why I love you. And, like coming back to the 4 agreements, because there's so much I learned from that. I've learned that, staying true to what I believe, being impeccable with my word.
Oh, yeah.
I have to do that. And it means towards myself, too. I cannot continue to act in a way that betrays my new core beliefs that I built and expect to feel good about myself.
Heard that.
I try it over and over.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Sometimes I even have to act as if, even if I don't feel in line with this.
Exactly. And it's not faking it till you make it. It's quite literally shifting our automatic behaviors through consistent rewiring of our thought processes. So we do that through talking, through self-talk, through journaling, and then our subsequent action. So you're not faking anything. You're literally just reparenting yourself. You're reteaching yourself is what it is.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
But it is so worth it.
It is.
Yeah.
We're not here to hate ourselves.
No.
We already get so much criticism from other people, comparisons from social media. We should not have to also beat our own selves up. I promise you, our existence is not meant to be that miserable.
So our closing tip is...
Oh, self-love also comes in the form of self-care. Quite literally taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, we don't mean face masks and, today's trendy idea of self-care either. Face masks are great and all.
They're not even helping my face right now anyway, so. Are
Wait,
they?
wait. So you're going to tell me that candle that I just bought won't make me whole?
What scent is it?
It's always something woodsy.
That's going to be a hard no. Gardenia! Gardenia will fucking solve your problems, but woodsy shit will not.
It's not my vibe.
Yeah, you're not a gardenia person. I am.
Yeah, you are. Bright and fresh. Mine is like dark and woodsy.
Yeah.
So us.
But anyway, what were we talking about?
Taking care of ourselves, like drinking water.
Oh, my brain fully rejected whatever I said and reverted back to what were we talking about? Because that's not a thing that we do. Taking care of ourselves through our nutrition. So weird. I gotta tell you, what we put in our bodies, fruits and vegetables, gardenia.
No. I love vegetables.
Do you?
I do.
Okay, good. You'll be less depressed. So we have to eat fruits and vegetables as the majority of our diet, making sure we're getting enough vitamin D.
Get that D.
Ooh, fun fact, actually.
Why am I like this?
Vitamin D and dick are.
Whoa! This just took a turn.
Don't be surprised.
Yeah.
Both are deficient in most mental health disorders.
Wait. No, wait. Wait. You can't claim that. Are you claiming that?
Vitamin D is. It's science.
Oh, okay.
I was just.
Yeah, we're just being...
Yeah, I was just throwing out another tip there. Getting enough exercise. There you go. You got to make sure you get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night.
Oh, like
at least
the 4 that I got last night. I had a show in New York City.
Are you okay?
I'm fine.
But the reason I bring this stuff up, that again, I'm bringing up all the things that I get consistent eye rolls about. We have to get down to basics in order to allow the bodies we're living in to function at their most optimal level. And we can't expect to function properly mentally and emotionally if we're not even creating the space to function physically
Can you not? Like drinking water, I have to remind myself to do it every day.
That is so fucked up that we have to even remind ourselves to drink water.
Seriously. So, to circle back, these are some simple things that we can do to quite literally take care of our bodies and in turn our minds. We hope you find these tips useful.
And to really circle back, if you didn't have a date for Valentine's Day, it doesn't matter. Who cares?
And if you did, I hope you got laid.
Same.
And either way, you're inherently worthy and deserving of love from yourself and from someone else when you are ready and when it is time for you.
But until then, you are not unlovable until someone loves you. You are and always have been lovable since you got here.
Thanks for tuning in.
We love you.